Hello and welcome everyone to this evening's episode of the Mystic Chat. Very excited tonight because our special guest is one of our regular co-hosts, Mr. Chris Allaun himself, to talk about his brand new book that just released December 1st, Otherworld. But before I get to Chris, I do want to introduce our other co-hosts. I'm going to start with Laura Gonzalez. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Laura?
Hi, everybody. Good evening. And yes, my name is Laura Gonzalez. I'm a pagan, a priestess of the goddess, a witch for hire. And I also do a podcast for CSMP, the Circle Century Network podcast. And I do this twice a month. And I'm very happy to inform you that there will be later another interview with Chris Allaun on Lunatic Mondays. Different questions, different things, different people. But follow us there as well. And without further ado, Luke, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Luke Babb. I am a devotional polytheist, magical jack of all trades. I write over at The Wild Hunt. I'm a member of the Troth and the Fellowship of the Phoenix with Chris, which really leaves only Chris to introduce himself. Chris, take it away.
I'm just laughing at you, Luke. That was so funny. Hi, I'm Chris Allaun. I am, yes, I say this all the time, a published author, but the book actually came out. Yay! I'm also an ordained minister with the Fellowship of the Phoenix, among other things. On the back of the book, there's a bio, so you, you can see all that stuff.
Well, I'm so excited about this topic today. But I've read many of your other works, Chris, and of course I am very privileged that I get to have rituals with Chris Allaun. So that is a very exciting experience. But I think what would be a great question to start with you tonight is, can you define what the other world is for us? I know that you go into this in great detail in your book, The Other World, but can you give us something to engage our audience tonight?
So, the other world, sometimes called the spirit world, sometimes called the shamanic world, and I really don't like when they say the astral plane, but kind of, but not really, but sort of. So basically, it's kind of like the three shamanic worlds all wrapped up into one thing, and that's how the Celtic and Northern Europeans see it. However, how I wrote the book, it's the other world that has to do with the spirits of the earth, the land, the faeries, and the serpentine powers of the land that we call dragons. So then the other world is, I had a dear friend read the book, and she says, "Oh, you talk a lot how the other world is this transitional place into the physical plane, but I always had thought of a place in between the worlds." And it is in between the worlds, but how I see the other world, it's kind of like, if you know anything about the spiritual plane, the astral plane, the mental plane, the etheric plane, so the astral, or let me back up, if you begin with the spiritual plane, spiritual energies, to have solid matter, to have the physical plane and so forth, you kind of have to become more dense. And how you do that is the physical plane has to kind of give birth to the mental plane. Then those two planes together have to give birth to the astral plane. Then those planes have to give birth to the etheric plane. And some people are like, well, I know what the astral is with dreams and astral projection and in thoughts and in imagination. What's the etheric plane? The etheric plane is that it's the energy that's almost like a conduit between the astral and the physical plane, and it's a place of the chakras, energy channels. Sometimes I always think of it as like foggy, but not fog. Anyway, and then through that you have the physical plane. So the other world, how I see it, especially the land of the fae and the elves, is it's a part etheric, part astral, and all enchanting. I see it as when spirit is trying to give energy to the physical plane. The other world is kind of in the intermediary between the life force, or I would say it turns spiritual energy into life force for the earth. I just came up with that. I should have put that in the book.
That's why you have things like this, though, that you can elaborate on your theories.
I need to write that down.
It's recorded, so that'll be awesome.
I know.
So you mentioned also in your book that this is very much a book about healing, not just yourself, but also the earth, and correlating a synergetic energy with the beings of the underworld. But can you kind of elaborate on a personal experience that you've had with healing in the otherworld?
I actually have a elvish healing teacher. And so he, a massage therapist, I'm a Reiki healer, blah, 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 blah. My focus on all things is healing. Even when I'm working on the ancestors, it's healing, because I think that when you work with the spirits, the gods, the fae, the ancestors, by working with those energies, it helps you heal in some capacity. Sometimes it's karma, sometimes it's just general energy healing. But anyway, and so I sought out an elvish healer, and by getting to know each other, having conversations, he agreed to work with me and teach me some elvish energy work. So there's that. The other thing is that I think the more you work with the beings of the other world, the nature spirits, animal spirits, and so forth, the more it heals the earth. Also, at the same time, the more it heals your spirit, your physical body, your soul, if you will. And so there's all these links about healing with yourself, the earth. And I also believe that the earth is a reflection of us. So if the earth is sick, then we're sick. If we heal the earth, then we're also healed. So by healing ourselves and the earth is kind of like it's synergistic. So there's all types of healing you can do, and like with animal healing, nature spirits, especially in the nature spirits, because in my Lakota training, I was trained to like take a plant, a flower, a tree, or an herb, or whatever, and to put it under your pillow, and it will teach you how to use it in healing. And you do it in dreams, and sometimes the dreams are like, hi, I'm Sage, this is how you use this. Other times it's, oh, I just had a dream when I was 7 and I broke up and broke my arm. That was weird. Well, the sage is trying to teach you how to use it through storytelling, So there's all types of healing and things like that.
So I have a question for you, Chris, and I have to preface with personal experience as always. I always tell people, I'm more of a logical thinker, and it has to be like, oh no, the gods and goddesses are nothing but archetypes, and they're creations of our own imagination. And then something happens and the goddess smacks me in the face, and then I'm like, oh my God, they're so real. They are so real. But there is a fine line that I've seen within myself and others where, yeah, god and goddess, okay, check. But then when we start talking about trolls and fairies and other spirits of the plants and animals and stuff like that, people are like, yeah, no, you're a little too. I know that's A, disrespectful, but B, how would you convince, not that you wanna or have to convince anybody, but how would you explain to somebody that is a strictly logical thinker what are these beings
Mhm.
from other worlds?
So there's a couple things I would do if we're going to speak logically. One of the things I talk about is life force, and life. For example, we as human beings have a life force. We have a physical body, but we also have a spirit. So we have to quit doing this whole thing about I am the a steward of the earth. I'm in charge of the earth, and I can do whatever I want with the earth. We have to quit that. We're equal with trees, with the animals, with the flowers, with the clouds. We're all equal. So that being said, if I have a physical body, the tree has a physical body. If I have a spirit, then so does the tree, and it may communicate with you differently, but it still communicates with you. And to be honest, you can give people all the lore, the mythology, the facts, the books. The best thing to do is take them out in a forest on a dark night and conjure up the spirits. And I've done it. In fact, Amy or Ruby and I have done it a bajillion times together. In fact, just recently, we're at a place into where we're like, wow, well, the Horned One is right there. Holy crap, it's right there. And not in a, I feel the spirit type of way, in a, don't see anything stupid, because he may get you kind of way, which was awesome. And to be honest, as we're walking through the forest, you can see the shadows of things moving around, and it wasn't a deer or anything. It was like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know the difference between a deer, a squirrel, and a spirit, and a nature spirit, or a fairy or whatever. Like, and plus, sometimes, I'm not sure if you guys have had this experience, that you're out in nature and you're doing a ceremony, and it's like you can feel the spirits breathing down your neck, and it feels so cool and so creepy, and I love it. It's like,
Yeah.
this is why I do this stuff.
As a child, growing up in a city and then immigrating to a big city in the United States, I did not believe, or I believe, but I haven't proved to myself. And it took one trip to the mountains in North Carolina, and believe me, they're more real than you and I. But anyway, that was my controversial question. That was no controversy.
That's not controversial.
No, but thank you so much.
We're talking about like being out in nature, and you mention in your book that all things that are natural are magical.
Mm-hmm.
And that really struck me in your work. And as I was processing this information that you had given, I was thinking, would you say then that when we're working in the other world, when we're working with nature spirits and the fairies and the elves and the dragons, would you say that we don't necessarily need like specifically magical tools, a wand, a knife, and that sort of thing? Would you say that we may be able to harness magical energy by simply borrowing items that we encounter in nature and then using those to travel into the other world and experience the etheric and the astral planes that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you brought that up. So when I was learning shamanism and all that, and tradcraft and things, one of the things that they first teach you is that you should be able to go into a forest or the seashore or the mountains or wherever, and just do your witchcraft or do your magic or do your druidry or your shamanism, whatever you want to do, because the tools, and yes, they're great, and I have tons of tools at home, but they're a focal point for your consciousness. That's all they are. And when we consecrate a tool, what we're doing is that we're either asking the four elements to bless them, or we're asking a spirit or an entity to bless it. And yes, we know the tool, it feels good as a part of us, and plus there's a certain aesthetic with the tools are called, because everybody knows Chris loves a cauldron. Chris loves his cauldron and his broom. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. However, I think it's very powerful to go out into the woods and find a branch or find a stick or a twig and use that as your stang or your even your besom. You don't really need the bristles of a brush. However, if you're going to use a besom outside, isn't for banishing. The reason we don't banish spirits from their house, because outside is their house. What we do with the besom is that you can use it for conjuring. We can use it as a focal point to help us like open the veil, or to help us in journey, or sometimes if we're, and this has happened many times, if you go deep into trance, it helps ground and support you. Because I can't tell you how many times I've tried the hill and I'm running around and shapeshifting and dancing and carrying on, and I'm like, whoa, I need my stick. Where's my stick? And that's a good tool. You know, it helps you focus that energy. So I'm glad you brought that up, because the other thing I keep getting a lot is I get a lot of people with the situation of COVID, or some people either don't have a job or they're only working part-time, and they say things like, hey, I can't afford an athame, I can't afford a broom, I can't afford a cauldron. How can I do magic? And I say, you don't need any of those things. You don't need any of those things. If you feel you have to have something, go outside and pick up a stick. You know, I used to have a friend who used to come over, because I used to have all these, like a staff, a broom, a stang, blah, blah, blah. And he'd say, my Lord, your house is like the realm of the sticks. That's all I see. Like, yeah, because I go outside and I find a stick. I'm like, I'm gonna take you home. So there's that.
I mean, so my question there, and Laura, let's have a who has the most controversial question.
Oh, here we go. I love it. I love
it. So my question there is, it sounds like what's most important is having a focal point to be able to like push your energy or your attention through.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, when I was reading the book, because you were talking about natural items, and my question is sort of like, what counts as natural? Because I've definitely seen perfectly good rituals done with, I think Lon Milo Duquette has an example of one that he did with a salt shaker, that he was at a local diner.
Yeah.
And so, like, I guess, do you find that having something that's made out of like less treated objects like wood or stone is better for this? Or can I pick up a bit of like plastic PVC pipe and use it as a wand?
So I think it depends on your intention and what you enjoy. Because, like, for example, when I go to the Botanicas, there's lots of plastic statues, plastic rosaries, lots of all types of things that are plastic, and they see results. But because in this book, we're talking about the spirits of the earth and the land, that was my main focus. Because For example, if you have an athame or a sword or a dagger, it's been treated. And yes, I like to think the handsome man has taken the athame and is pounding it on the anvil, taking the ore from the earth, but we all know that's probably not true. It's probably in a factory somewhere. And I also think we do the best we can. Like, for example, if you find, and to me, just because I like the old witch genre aesthetic, I like a good iron or copper cauldron. I just do. It feels good. It feels witchy to me. It feels kind of fun. And if someone takes a plastic cauldron, they say, hey, I just conjured a spirit. Great. That's awesome. The only thing I will say is all the natural tools, if I need to bury them or throw them in the lake or do something, I can, because it is on natural. If you use plastic ritual items, please don't just throw them away, recycle them, because it's about the earth. It's about the earth mother. It's about healing her, and by healing her, you heal yourself. So there's that. But yeah, I'm not going to say if you have something that isn't natural, isn't going to work, because I don't believe that at all. However, if you're working directly with the elves or the spirits of the land, then yes, you really should have a natural item. I mean, at least I think.
I think you would appreciate this comment in the comment sections of our chat. Seth B says, I really like to have things organic, but in reality, my opinion of humans, that they are a part of the nature, and they are there to, let me see, try this again. But in reality, in my opinion, humans are a part of nation, and therefore everything they create is thus a part of nature. And I think you would appreciate that, because you say something similar to that in your book. So that's interesting. So for you, Luke, too, is that with this comment, yes, in theory, if you're in the woods and you see a piece of PVC pipe and you incorporate that into your ritual somehow, then yes, that would be incorporating something from the natural environment that you're in.
The only thing I do hate to see, and I used to see this at the Pagan Spirit Gathering all the time when it was over at in Ohio, they would have a fairy shrine that was filled with nothing but plastic beads. And I mean, not just a necklace, I mean thousands of them. I mean, at first it's pretty because you're like, oh, sparkly, but a few things, it wears and down and looks faded. Two, it's polluting the earth itself. I know it's an offering to the fairies. I know they love shiny things and stuff like that. But if we're going to build a shrine, which I think you should have a shrine or a sacred space or a corner with plants and stones and things like that. That really needs to be all natural, because I do want to be clear, fairies and elves are not nature spirits. And nature spirit is a plant spirit, a tree spirit, the spirit of the stream, or what have you. Fairy beings and elf beings are their own entities. However, they are very close to nature, and I'm slightly going off topic. I actually believe when humans and fairies were actually being created in spirit, we decided, and I think that the fairies and elves were at one time physical, sort of, but I think that we were created together, and the fairies decided, you humans don't seem to have it together, so we're going to take care of the life force of the earth and take care of the earth, and then you do what you're going to do, and we'll see what happens. And over time, what happened? Humans got worse and worse and worse. And I believe that fairies and elves became more refined energetically, to where I think the reason why people think they're nature spirits is because they're so in tune with nature, they're so in tune with the earth. It's a misconception. However, you could say, oh, well, humans are city spirits. Humans are like building spirits, which I can kind of see that logic. We're not part of the building, we're a separate entity. And I guess that's another analogy you can use with the Fae, because yes, even though they're associated with the trees, they are not of the trees.
I have an interesting question from the comments from Alan Salami that kind of goes with what you're saying, as humans being spirits, spirits of buildings, and making these correlations to different things. And Alan's question is, what do you think of the correlations some people make of UFO phenomenon to fairy lore and experiences?
I hate it. I hate everything about it. And I mean, well, I do. Here's the thing. I believe that aliens are a real thing. I believe in UFOs. I believe in all of it. I believe in other planets. I think we've talked about this before. I love astrophysics, wormholes, Star Trek, time travel, all of it. Like I'm here for it. That being said, it's the same thing. When people are like, oh, it turns out the fairies are actually aliens. No, that's like saying the fairies are actually tree spirits. No, they're not. They're separate things. Like they do exist, but they exist separately. It's kind of like saying the elves and the fairies are the exact same thing. They're related, absolutely, but you can't superimpose them 100%. You know, I think we need to be respectful. It's kind of like, for example, if I jump in a spaceship and I fly to some planet in the other solar system, I don't want someone saying, "Oh, you're actually a tree spirit." What? No, I'm from Earth. Is that the other world? No, it is another world, but it's not the other world. You like how I was able to throw that in there?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, so I think sort of to Alan's point there, I think the part of it, I don't know. I think that there's actually something really useful in teasing out the difference between I am interacting with another spirit. I am explaining something that is happening to me with the language I have at hand right now, right? And maybe that's interacting with another spirit. Maybe it's just something that I don't want to deal with, or I don't have the words to deal with. Maybe it's something that's happening to me, right? And I think that I think you're right, Chris. I think that there's absolutely a possibility for all of these things to exist in super distinct ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that a lot of folks aren't going to know what they're looking at when they're looking at it, right? Especially folks who don't have the who don't have the background or the how many decades of research do we have between us, y'all?
Yeah.
Like, right?
Like 100.
Right. So I totally hear the like, I am alien agnostic. To know?
Wait. What's an alien agnostic? What does that even mean?
So, agnostic is like, I don't know if it's true, but I'm just not gonna, it doesn't really bother me one way or the other, right?
No.
So I don't know if aliens are real. It doesn't really bother me one way or the other. I can totally see the clear like parallels between a story about like I walked into the woods and something really weird happened to me and I don't remember what it was, but I'm back now and I feel really odd. And that could be like I got taken to fairyland for 7 years and now I don't remember really how to talk to you. Or it could be I got taken into a UFO. Something happened. Let's not talk about it.
Well,
You know,
I think. Go ahead, Laura. You're gonna say.
sorry, I just want to say something like salty and funny at the same time. I'm salty with aliens because people think that they built the pyramids, and no, it was my ancestors. And I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, it was the aliens. No, it was my ancestors, period. Full stop.
Right, I agree. I agree with that.
But my theory, because in Mexico, where I come from, for those who don't know, we see UFOs almost once a month. I mean, they just hover over the city and then they go. I have a theory, and I know this has probably nothing, or I'm sure nothing to do with the book, but I think it's us from the future.
You think? I think that's an interest, because I believe in time travel. Absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
Why
You
wouldn't I?
mentioned in your book that time in the other world is simultaneous, that it's the past, the present, and the future all at once.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
I think somehow we managed to build these saucers and we come back because, you know, memories, and can make contact, because if you make contact, we all seen Back to the Future. You cannot make contact. But anyway, back to the book, please. Don't let me derail. I love it. This is not a question. This is a commentary. I love Chris Allaun. I love this about you, and you're very generous with your knowledge. I love that you put a bunch of exercises and things to do for people.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same question I ask you about any of your books. Is this for people who are experienced? Is this for anybody? As always, I will say act with caution, but what is your recommendation on that regard?
On the techniques, so in anyone can do it. I mean, a plant, and this is hard, it's a hard thing to do, but the plan whenever I did all the books is to make it explain enough for brand new people, but give enough of the techniques so that advanced, intermediate, and beginner people can do it at the same time. And it's hard because sometimes you explain it and you're like, oh, I took 4 pages to say that. But at the same time, you're trying to guess who your audience is. And to be honest, like, I talk about, so in the book, when I talk about working with fairies and working with the dragons, I do give you enough to get going. But I'm also assuming that you've had some energy work. You know the 4 elements. You know some of the basics. You know, because I wouldn't say this was a beginner book. I would say that this is a bridge between beginner, intermediate, and to advanced, because some of you advanced people should be able to see a technique and you can say, oh, I haven't tried that. Or you should be able to say, oh, let's take his technique and add blank. And I'm the first to say, please add on to the book. Please change it. Please do whatever you want. The only thing I ask is, so one thing I say throughout the book is have a relationship with the spirits, leave offerings, and be respectful. But I also believe that if you're really tuning in and connecting with the spirits, you want to have an open heart. You want to leave offerings. You want to be respectful. One of the things that I talk about, and it's weird because I have so many thoughts, I think it's a whole other show, but on dragons and dragon magic and things, because there are some authors who have dragon books that's not dragon magic as it's taught anywhere. Some people will take an energy of earth, air, fire, water, and can, instead of saying, I call to you in the element of air, the rising sun, inspiration, and the new dawn, they'll say, oh, it's a dragon. No, it's not a dragon. For dragons are certainly part of energy, but just like with the fairy alien thing, um, they're very different. And it's sad that some authors have put out a lot of misinformation. And I actually belong to a few dragon groups online because it's interesting. I mean, some of the people are on top of it, and other people are like, hey, I'm a beginner. Can you help me out? And so I try to recommend these are the books or these are the practices you should try. And there's always 7 people like, oh, try this author who, and instead of air, you call it dragon. I'm like, oh God. My other favorite thing is dragons are not angels. I have to tell you, dragons are not angels. I believe in angels. I believe that they're a very specific energy. They're not angels. Please stop it.
Yeah, fairies and angels get correlated all the time. There's even a more modern, well, this happened with Celtic fairies, is that there became a story when the Celtic people converted to Christianity, is that the fairies then became fallen angels to coordinate both mythologies in the people. And
So
I'd say that that is not true. I think that angels and fairies are completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my question then. For people who are like just entering in, right, and they wander across one of these books, what's a good way to, especially since, and this is something I think about all the time, it's so hard in paganism to say you're wrong, right? Because we are all supposed to be able to chart our own paths and like build our own practices. It's really difficult to, I think, like justify in a group of people you don't know being like,
You're wrong. Right.
that one's wrong. How can you tell as a newbie?
So as a teacher, and I will say, hey, you need more practice. You need more experience in practice. And I think it's okay to say. And there's a big difference between saying, hey, you need some more experience because I've been doing this for 30 years versus someone saying that they have 2 years or 3 years. There's a big difference. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who come from a place of ego, and they're trying to, oh, you're wrong because I'm going to be a gatekeeper and I'm going to teach you the right way. Oh, I don't believe in gatekeeping. We had a show on that. We should share information and we should say, hey, try this, try that, because it's kind of like when I used to read magical books and pagan books that were just backwards. And I thought they were true because I didn't know. And so I was I either get training or, for example, shamanism is a good one. When you actually work with indigenous people, it's a completely different experience. That's why I tell people there's nothing wrong with core shamanism, but you're not a shaman. That's not okay to say. It's appropriation. I'll stop saying that. However, if I don't know a person and they haven't made the teacher a student commitment to me, I will say, here's a thought about what I think is appropriation. You're free to have your own thoughts. Because we don't have the relationship. If we had the relationship, I'll say, no, because my teachers, I'll get in trouble with them. And the few times I have slipped or made a mistake, let me tell you, they are very quick to correct you. And they don't apologize and they don't do this whole thing about, oh, let me be nice. They say, no, this is incorrect. Please fix it. And but that's also the tradition as well. But I also have a relationship with them. I am their student, that's a big difference. But at the end of the day, I think it's okay to say, hey, you don't have experience, then that's okay. let me direct you to some resources. I've seen lots of authors who have done that very eloquently, and at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, are you a student who's going to say, thank you, I really appreciate your help? Or are you going to say, piss off, who are you to tell me? Oh, you wrote 10 books about the subject? I'm not going to believe you. And that happens all the time. I see it on Facebook all the time. And, you know, when someone gives me advice and I think, I don't like their advice, I say thank you. Because they're at least trying to help someone on their path, you know.
I think that of course, agree with everything that you are saying, Chris, and I emphasizing to people, you know, like I've been doing this 5 years, I've been doing here this 10 years, I've been doing this 30 years, whatever. To emphasize, I'm not more spiritual, I'm not more special, I'm not wiser, you know, I just been at it longer. That's all it is I've been at it a little longer.
It's experience. That's what it is.
So I know where when it squeaks, I know where it needs oil. That's all it is, you know.
Well, that's it. I mean, you also know how to troubleshoot. You also know, and I used to have this conversation with other people. I don't know what I don't know, but I know what I know. You know, so I may not know all the ins and outs of, say, I don't know, Hinduism. But I know some of the basics, and if someone corrects me, I'm gonna say, okay, thank you. And they have corrected me because I mispronounced a name, or I did the breathing exercise incorrectly. And they're like, oh, well, that was okay. In tradition, so like, for example, I try to use things like, I use words like, in tradition, it's taught like this. Or I'll say, in my own experience, I have found this. And so I do that in the book all the time. In fact, I put a caveat at the very beginning, and I talk about a lot of these techniques came from the traditional witchcraft that I have been a part of for 20 years. However, this is my branch, and people may have a different thought, people may have a different philosophy or different experience, and that's okay. And I think it's fine when people have other experience and say, and I didn't find that to be true. I'm like, really? Let's talk about that. I'm fascinated. You know, it opens up dialogue.
I do have another question for you. In your book, you do make an appeal to beginners in journey work and go to the underworld. And you make it very clear that you feel that it's very safe for anyone to undertake a journey to the other world, and that they won't lose their body, they won't get lost. It's safe to do. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I think that would be helpful to some of our more inexperienced practitioners out there that are really excited about going to the other world, but are maybe nervous that they don't have the ability to do so.
So the first time I learned how to astral project, and just for clarification, there is a difference between shamanic journeying and astral projection, but the first time I left my body, I did it in a teacher-student environment. And I was hesitant at first to do the practice, and my teacher goes, are you afraid you won't be able to get back in? I'm like, kinda. And they laughed at me. They're like, they didn't laugh at me, they laughed because it was funny. And what they said, and what I have learned to be true, is, so there's no silver cord. I have traveled a bajillion times. I've never seen an astral cord, but we are connected to our body. So life force, physical life force, our conscious life force. Oh, another example, Reiki Poa, which, Ruby, I taught you Reiki Poa, what, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
It's the idea that when someone is dying, in the dying process, you you send energy to their chakras with the Reiki symbols, and it helps their spirit leave through the crown. The reason that's important is because if it leaves through the other chakras, it has a karma attached to it in the next life. However, you have to practice that. In fact, the Buddhists say that you should practice POA even if you're healthy. And I remember my teacher, Billy, was like, we all rose our hands, were like, if we practice dying, will we get sick? What will happen? And she goes, no, it's just your life force attaches you. Even if you leave your body through your fetch or journeying or astral projection or whatever, you're not going to get lost. You're not, a demon isn't going to jump in your body, because even when you leave, you still have your aura. So you remember how we talked about the third body at the beginning? So that governs like your energy channels, your aura, your chakras. So when you leave in spirit, when you leave your body, your life force is going to can protect you from intrusions, and it can also, there's a connection through your consciousness, the energy and the life force of your body. That's why you can't get lost. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been journeying and I'm like, I don't know where I am in the astral, or I'm in a very strange place in the other world, and I just thought, okay, go back home. And I open my eyes and I'm home. In fact, a lot of people, and this is a good thing, a lot of people say, oh, I'm noticing when I'm journeying, I can hear things in my bedroom or wherever, but I'm also trying to journey at the same time. Does that mean I'm not fully out of my body? Yes and no. What that means is that your physical brain, your consciousness, your senses is still able to hear and have conversations, but your spirit body is actually gone. We have more bodies than you think. We have a whole lot. We have a ton if you think about it, especially depending on the tradition. Well, go
So
ahead, Luke.
sort of to that question, Chris. Just so that, because you're talking about a bunch of different stuff right now.
Yeah.
And I think for our audience, can you give us a really clear, and of course the answer is kind of going to be no, because maybe there's not a really clear, but can you give us a clear definition between astral travel on one hand
Mm-hmm.
and world journeying on the other?
So they are connected, absolutely, because I believe that the other worlds and the underworld and the upper world are part of the astral plane, the mental plane, the spiritual plane. But when you say travel in the astral, what you're saying is travel through the astral plane of creation. So remember when he said we have a spiritual plane, the mental plane, the astral plane of all things, and so you're in that plane, you know. However, to confuse you even more, the astral plane is shaped by your thoughts. So if I think a special garden, then I'm in a special garden. The difference is, how do you go if you're astral projecting or journeying? Well, a few things. If you're I think it's your intention, because if you're like, I want to be in the other world, you will be. And when in the astral world, you can sit there and think, a fire engine. Well, there's a fire engine. Train. There's a train. You know, it's how the astral works, is how we're able to manifest things magically. In the other world, you may say, I want to see a train. There's no train. There's a ferry going. What are you doing?
Hey, I'm going to interrupt you real quick, Chris. Yeah. I do have to sign off early tonight. It's been a pleasure interviewing you. I do want to remind the rest of the audience out there to stay tuned, as the discussion is going to continue, and Chris will open up the audience and allow you directly to answer questions about his book. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to let you all continue this wonderful conversation as I sign off. I can't wait to see the rest of this on YouTube, everyone.
Bye.
All right, thank you,
Bye.
Ruby. So I'm gonna steal the microphone from Ruby,
Go ahead.
and because we have precisely 5 minutes, and I don't want this to not be on the recording, being the marketing whiz that I am, where can people buy this book, the other book, the other book, the other book, the other book, and the other book? Because you have like a million of them.
4, and I'll have a 5th one in a year from now. They're all on Amazon. Just Google Chris Allaun and look for this beautiful picture. I love this picture. It makes me happy. However, you can buy it from the publisher directly. It's John Hunt Publishing. That's the overarching giant corporate machine. The actual publisher is Moon Books, MOO10. The previous books, Underworld and the Upperworld, you can find on Amazon, but also Mandrake of Oxford. So make sure you check out those books too.
Go ahead, Luke.
I was just going to say that this has been a lovely conversation. Thank you for talking to us about all this, Chris. I know that we're going to touch back on a lot of these conversations in the future, so looking forward to it.
Thank you. All right, so I want to thank everybody for joining us, and it was a fun being the one on the other end of the conversation. I will say it was kind of hard and got to host because I'm a type A Gemini, and that's just how it is. But anyway, thank you guys for showing up. It's good to see you, and we shall see you soon.